Hey everybody, welcome. We're going to wait a couple seconds to let everybody start coming in here. Appreciate everybody joining. All right. All right, so welcome to Centercode's webinar, 3 tips for improving the cost of quality with Delta testing. Again, really appreciate everybody joining and appreciate your time. My name is Austin Meyer. I'll be your host. And while folks are joining, like I said, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping details. So this webinar is being recorded, and we're going to send out links to the recording and the slide deck afterwards. The webinar should be about 30 to 45 minutes with some time at the end for Q&A. And during the webinar, please send your questions over to us through the Zoom dashboard. We'll collect them. We'll do a Q&A at the end, get your questions answered and things like that. So a few announcements from Centercode here. If you haven't heard, we've launched some new editions of Centercode. So if you're new to us or you're curious about what they are, I encourage you to check out our new pricing page, as well as our new free beta edition, which includes everything you need to run a beta test. You can sign up and get started by going to signup.centercode.com. And then we also have a Discord community where you can collaborate with others in the wider industry of beta testing and user testing to get advice and work together and share experiences. We're always looking for more professionals to join. So please, we encourage you to head over to centercode.com/community and become a member. And finally, I want to encourage you to check out the Delta Huddle podcast, Centercode's monthly podcast, where we chat with industry leaders about user testing, product development, war stories, all that kind of stuff. And again, we're releasing episodes monthly. And lastly, for those of you who don't know Centercode, Centercode's the leading platform for achieving your user testing goals with minimal resources to maximize results. Our platform automates the many aspects of user testing, like feedback collection, tester engagement, reporting, and all that kind of stuff. Our customers use Centercode to engage with their users to gather insights in a variety of ways. Whether you're building a beta test, a customer advisory board, a dogfooding program, conducting competitive research, whatever it is, Centercode's platform can manage and automate it. So with that brief introduction, I want to hand it over to John Little, the Senior VP of Product Marketing here at Centercode, to get us started. Hey, John.
Hello, Austin. Thanks a lot, and welcome everyone who's there. And that is my AI-generated image. So we're goofing around with AI on a daily basis, and I think I've kept this one approved for the last couple of webinars. I need to replace it with one more of the hundreds that I got with that. Just try something else out. But yes, I am lead the marketing and product teams here at Centercode, and it's really great to be talking with you all today about quality. I have a background inside business research and management, and I have three principles that I try to apply to everything that I do. And I think these are just useful in general, and you may find one of these useful. If you have your own set of principles, I'd love to hear about it myself. But that's focus, communication, and a sense of urgency. I think when it comes to business and the stuff we do, that you have to have the right focus. You have to communicate with the right people, the people around your group, make sure everyone has the right information they need. And lastly, have a sense of urgency about getting stuff done. And so just throwing those out, again, I'd be interested to hear any guidelines that you have for yourself and how you operate. We'll hop into this here. What we're going to discuss today is right off the bat, we're going to go right into the 3 tips and take a look at what those 3 tips are. Then we're going to take a step back and look at some dimensions of quality. And lastly, we'll go into specifically how you can improve the cost of quality with Delta testing. So right after the 3 tips. First one, selecting the proper panel. Now, when we start, or as we get into this right here, I'm going to assume that the majority of everyone who's listening is running some type of pre-release user test, a beta test, or something along those lines. Our surveys have shown that about 85% of the industry is doing that. And so when it comes to beta testing, this should be almost a no-brainer, but just things to think about or to remind you of. First, selecting the proper panel. Make sure you get the right skills, make sure you get the right target, the right market. Either it's a new target market or a existing market, maybe it's your customers, a subset of your customer base, people with certain features on their device they have from you already, whatever that is right there. Second, you want to focus on experiences. And this may be a little bit different from what you may have thought about inside the past, but focus could be on trying to find all the bugs you could, or focus on maybe a QA script to ask people or testers to go through to make sure it's all working correctly. Well, you have your QA team for that. What you're really looking for right here inside the test, inside a good Delta test, is to focus on the experience. What is the experience your product's giving to the tester or to the end customer eventually? And is it working correctly? And what you'll find through looking at experiences, you'll find unique use cases because you're not trying to drive them down the use cases you already have. They'll come up with new use cases on their own. You want to make sure to have all the ecosystems, at least a sample of the ecosystems you're going to have your product inside the future, and give them enough time with the device to be able to adopt it. Lastly, we need to understand the impact of issues. That is collected through a handful of different signals. That can be the severity of the issue, the feature that the issue occurred on, could have a higher weight to it, like your login process may be more important than your settings update process. Popularity is just how frequently it's occurring across your test, and they'll give you overall relative importance. And so by focusing on these three things, you're going to improve your quality overall, and by doing this of the Delta methodology, you're going to improve your cost of quality. Before we go into any more detail there, though, let me stop with a quote. If you want to converse with me, first define your terms. I'm not positive that Voltaire said this here, but it's attributed to him. About a few years ago, I was given a class actually on beta testing. And as I was going through there, I was talking about how beta testing could improve your product quality. Someone in the back of the classroom raised their hand, so I called on them to see what they were going to say. And in a British accent, a guy asked me a question, "What do you mean by quality?" I couldn't believe it. I was stumped. So I stuttered for a second. I mumbled something probably about how bugs shouldn't be inside of your hardware, inside your software, and then had to move on. So never to let that happen again. I went through and really tried to understand what is quality. And so I'd like to start this whole conversation here as us talking through some key terms that are useful potentially in understanding cost of quality or even thinking about our products in general. I have nothing else from this conversation. If you come away with a little better understanding or a little more thought into some of these key terms, I think that'll be a win. So the terms I'd like to talk about just for a slide each is technology, the whole idea of the whole product, quality and its definition, the cost of quality and its definition, beta testing, and delta testing. And based on that, we'll go back into the 3 tips and dive a little further into those 3 tips. Up front, though, is technology. So very simply, if you have children that are going to school, or if you're in college, or if you've been through it recently, STEM is probably a term you've heard before. It stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. It's the more technical skills that people are working on. The T is the technology there. I think it's very important to see it in the context of this as well, because science is trying to understand things around us. We understand more about our surroundings through science. Engineering is how we engineer something that we can reproduce. And so we have something that we understand from science, and we can engineer and make something from that. And we have math, which is the basis of almost everything that's out there. And in the middle, we have technology. And technology is the stuff that engineering is producing from understanding science. And a lot of times it's being done with math through the engineers. And so the T is in a good spot right there. And technology is something that we're all working with as we're trying to push the boundaries forward, solving new problems or solving old problems inside new ways with more things around us. Just for a textbook definition, technology is coming up with new ways to solve problems, inventing something, or the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. Again, the practical purpose inside of the products we're producing are the products themselves. It's trying to solve somebody's problem through a product. Or we can go a different route, back to Douglas Adams. Technology is a word that describes something that doesn't work yet. And quite often that's the case. Once something starts working consistently, it's not really considered technology anymore. At some point in time, the hammer was technology because no one had a hammer up to that point. And it was made correctly. It had the forks on the back so you pull the nails out. A hammer is not considered technology today. It just works all the time. You pick it up, you know what to do with it. Where we could very easily look at some of the stuff that's happening with AI and say that is definitely technology. It is not working at all like how it's supposed to. Maybe at some point in time, that'll just be a working, functioning product as well. With the technology product that we're all working on, we're creating this idea of the whole product. And what the whole product is the core product that's augmented by everything that is needed for the customer to have a compelling reason to purchase it or to continue to use it, or just everything that's around the product that leads to the experience of the product that is not part of the actual product. Just to kind of diagram this out, what we have here is our core product. And this is primarily where the technology and effort is being pumped into if we're creating a product or creating an update for the product. A product is something that's trying to solve a problem. And so an update to an existing product could be trying to solve a problem better. That could be the product that you're focused on today. Around that, you have a handful of different things. You may have some getting started if it's a new product, it's something that somebody's getting for the first time. You have your brand that's influencing the experience, someone's emotional connection with your brand is going to influence how they see your core product. The feature qualities on the product, the defects that are potentially inside the product, the bugs that are there, the packaging of the product, the paperwork that comes with it, the website where the product is purchased from, that all surrounding their product and leads to the satisfaction of someone as they are getting the product. Even farther out, we have the ecosystems of the products work in. We have the support team if they have problems with the product and need to contact them. There's the community of other people who are using the product. Are they part of that community? Are they part of something special now because they have it? Like, I have my Nike shoes on. I can see other people with Nike shoes. Believe me, once I got them, I started noticing a lot more of them. I kind of, at least in my own mind, in a little community right there. The compatibility it has with other products. And then the training that's either they're being provided by your company or through just themselves as they use it, or through their social interactions with other people. These things all together make the whole product done. So when we consider products here, we really want to consider the whole product, because if the whole product is not working correctly, then there's a problem, even if the core product is very good. When it comes to quality, and this was the question that got asked me, what is quality? What I believe is there's two different sides of quality. The first side is the features for the market. And so when you get a product, at least in my mind, sometimes I think to myself, or I may even tell somebody, hey, this is a quality product. I mean, Apple's probably an overused example, but I will use it again. When I pick up the new iPhone and I look at it, actually, it hasn't always been the case. Some cases I've thought this is not a very high quality product. I think they should have done something differently, but they've set a pretty high bar. The last one I have, the iPhone 14, I picked it up, I looked at it, and said, yes, this is a high quality product. Now, I have no idea whether there's bugs inside the product. I have no idea how well it's going to function, but from the look and feel and the way that it initially appears, it appears to be high quality. And that's exactly what this side of the quality definition means. It's designed to meet or beat the competition. It's the design that's actually going into the product before it's even built. It's going after a market share or to increase a market share. And so you are building a product that someone's going to use to solve a problem that'll hopefully take over the competition. They'll want to use your product because it has high enough quality, or it meets their needs inside that way, to be able to beat someone else who's trying to solve the same problem, or maybe nothing that's solving a problem today. In some cases, you may want to charge a premium price for the level of quality. With my example of the iPhone, there's a premium price in there. If you look at the Google Pixel, again, that's a higher end Android. You have a premium price that's associated with that because it's a higher quality product. Again, we're not talking about bugs inside the product. We're just talking about the features of the product, the materials the product is made of, things like that. And what it's really looking to try to do, in most cases, is secure customer delight. Now, I know there's some products that don't go this direction. You may have a loss leader product, so you're not trying to get a premium price for it there. Or maybe the product isn't necessarily trying to secure customer delight because it's trying to, maybe it's part of the whole product for a different product. It's an add-on to it just to make it function better. And the other product is one that's actually trying to get the customer delight. But in this case here, where you're really, in most cases, what we're aiming for is to have that delight. Or we consider that a 5-star rating, something that just went to the very end of what someone thinks that it ought to go. On the flip side, we have then the bugs. So quality is also freedom from defects. There's no defects inside of it, or limited defects in this thing that was designed a certain way. So our freedom from defects would be a low error rate or low failure rate, a decreased number of returns because of that, infrequent updates, not having to constantly update because there's problems that are having to be fixed, and reduced customer dissatisfaction. So someone being dissatisfied with the product because there's lots of bugs in the product. If you've beta tested some software, I'm sure that you may have gone from being very satisfied or even delighted with the product to some level of dissatisfaction if it's a hardware product with some software update to it, because the beta version of that just wasn't where which caused you some problems. Now, of course, you most likely signed up for it and you're expecting it. I happens to me all the time. Most time it's not so frustrating to have to roll back, but I definitely feel that what would be dissatisfaction. That's the reason why the company's running the beta test in the first place. They want to find out what that dissatisfaction is that's bringing down the other side of their quality product. And so quality, when you say it, has two different sides of it. One is how the product is designed to be, the quality or the level of quality you have there. And the flip side is the freedom of defects, whether or not there's any defects inside the design of it. So with that in mind, let's go into the cost of quality. What's driving the cost of quality? Well, first, we have the cost of making a great product. That can start at the very beginning with market research. If you're going to make a great product that's going to fit a market very well, you're going to have to do the research to figure out whether or not it's actually, or what the problem is and how the best way is to solve that problem. You have the quality of materials that go into the product. Is it going to be made out of plastic, or is it going to be made out of glass? Is it going to be made out of, something cheap or something expensive? What are the materials going into it? The other feature design, how much effort goes into the feature design? How much effort goes into tuning the fine, the rough edges, making sure there's nothing that's going to feel wrong when someone picks it up and touches it. Or inside software, make sure the speed is correct as you're going from one page to the next. Is it moving too fast? Is it moving too slow? All that costs something, either inside of opportunity cost or inside of actual cost as it's being designed. And then obviously user testing and research. Now, most of the stuff is all happening, and you try to get the most of it done before you actually start making the product. Because once you start making the product, wheels are in motion, and it's difficult to make big changes. Although sometimes big changes have to be made, it's difficult to, and it costs a lot more, which just drives up the cost. The cost of quality is this, what it takes to make a product. Also, it's the failures, like we saw on the previous slide. So you have the cost of bugs and issues. Now, this goes right into your QA function. So QA, the reason that quality assurance or quality control even exists is because there are bugs. If all products are made with no bugs, there'd be no reason to have to check it to see if there's bugs there or not. Back at Western Digital, whenever we started getting closer to a product being launched, QA had a very prominent place at the table because we were looking to see how many bugs were being found on the builds that were coming out. And what they were really looking for is what they called the knee, is where bugs were coming up versus being fixed, and then started going down the other direction. So we had fewer bugs that were being found that were being fixed. And we knew we were going to now be getting close to release. Things were going in the right direction. That just goes into your bugs fix, updates, and revisions. And this can be prior to launch or after launch. After launch is most likely a lot more costly, but this is all happening prior to launch too. It's pulling away from the engineering efforts, pulling away from other teams to fix these bugs, get these updates and revisions pulled out. After it is launched, you have to deal with things like support and returns. And so the cost of that bug is going to be a lot more now if it affects the support team, or if it is actually a return product, or someone decides not to subscribe anymore. Now you have a churn on your SaaS side. And that can just bleed into your brand health. The money you put into keeping the brand healthy and keeping the brand looking good is part of that side as well. It's the cost of quality. It goes back to the whole product. Is the whole product working, or is the whole product not working? Or is a piece of the whole product not functioning correctly? Interestingly enough here, generally speaking, making a higher quality product when it comes to its features and designs and market fit costs more. So you're going to have more money up front. You're going to have a higher cost by trying to make something that's higher quality on that side. On the flip side, having a high quality product with fewer features or fewer bugs or higher freedom of defects is going to cost less. It's going to cost less to maintain that in the long run. And the long run is where a lot of times it matters when it goes into maintenance, because it can affect more than just the product itself as it goes into the industry or into the market for a long time. So beta testing is something everyone's doing to try to understand the quality of the product. And everyone here probably is already running these beta tests. Mostly, beta testing requires three real things. It requires a product, something for you to hand out to people for them to use it, the testers, the people who are actually going to use it, and the feedback they're going to give you to hopefully make the product better at the end of the day. Running some surveys and talking to people, beta testing is pretty much this simple and this broad. So if it's involving a product, primarily pre-release inside the beta phase, it has some testers that could be friends and family, it could be target market, it could be prior customers. It can be the people next to you in the cubicle that would be considered a tester. And then feedback, just the information given back to you, and hopefully you can use it for something else. Different companies have different improvements on this, but that kind of is the core of it. Excuse me. Delta testing layers on some more specifics to beta testing. It's a specific method that's used when you have a beta stage product. What it provides specifically are templates that give you more speed and consistency in what's happening, the use of modern tools instead of just perhaps spreadsheets or email tools that are made for doing this stuff, and then some specific KPIs where you can understand where everything is at the end of the day. How healthy is the project? How healthy is the product? What things actually need to change? Just get a drink real fast. And so those are some terms just to talk about before we go back now to our three tips, which is selecting the proper panel, how to select the proper panel, how to focus on experiences, and how to understand the impact of issues that are on your product, which will lead you to a higher quality product on both sides, because beta testing is the only time we have that product, like we talked about just a second ago, that can be sent out to testers for them to use it and give you feedback on it. Up until that point, it's all hypothetical. It's features that are being tested. Maybe it's concepts that are being tested. Maybe it's certain parts of the product that are being tested, but it's not actually the whole thing until it comes to this point. And in order to maximize what's happening at this period of time, you want to understand both sides of quality. You want to understand the feature satisfaction and the freedom of defects. And in order to do that, these three things are critical: selecting the proper panel, focusing on experiences, and then understanding the impact of the issues you have, because not all issues are created equal. So here are some tips for getting the proper panel. First is know your market and start with a sample of your current or future market. You want to make sure this gets in the hands of people who are actually going to use the product, not someone who's not, because if you get it in the hands of the wrong person, the feedback will most likely be useless. Second, maybe consider your competition's market. So if you're trying to go into a competitive market, or if you want to understand where your competition sits, you can do a test, run a delta test on their product, and really understand what's happening right there and know how you can combat it yourself. You need to understand your users so you can separate them out into groups and maybe provide earlier builds to advanced users, which goes to the second point here, which is provide stable products to the general audience. And so as you're going through the beta phase with your product, choosing people early on to get feedback, as we know, the farther we get into development and we get closer to release, the more costly it is overall, because more money has already been dumped into creating the product. So if you can get some people who, from your target market, who are inclined to do more technical testing, or maybe somebody like myself on some of the products I talked about before, where I'll get the beta version of the product to see the pre-release stuff, even though it has bugs. The bugs don't bother me most of the time that much. Now, you'll be able to use them to get those bugs early on, and then go to the general audience so you don't burn the general audience. Just as a quick example, we were running a test one time for a company, and they wanted to push out 1,000 products to a new market they were going into. And we suggested against this, but management definitely wanted to push out 1,000 right out the gate. And so we did what they said. We pushed 1,000 out the gate to a brand new market. At the end of the day, it was really a train wreck. Like after a couple of weeks of trying to get people up and using the product, everyone just started dropping off. The target market wasn't ready for all the bugs that were there. And so we ended up with about 100 people that were testing, and that really was the early people who should have had the product themselves in the first place, not the broader audience. They really couldn't use it until it got to a more stable spot. After a couple months of iterating on the product, we did go back up to 1,000. We got about 500 who agreed to come back and test with us again. And they were actually able to use the product at that point in time, because now it was closer to where it should have been for them. When you have your testers on your test, making sure you get the right testers at the right point in time is critical, so you don't either get bad information or burn the people who give you good information in the future. One thing you can do as well for your panel you want to do is get a broad scope of devices. And I'm thinking devices if we use that term broadly, it could be computers if you have a software product. It could be mobile devices if you have a mobile product. It could even be houses. If your product goes into a house, you have cameras, you have a water heater that's going inside there. Just something that's broad, get a broad range, because you'll have the ability to, with your testers, if you have the information on your testers, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. And then lastly, this goes into looking for unique ecosystems. And the term ecosystem, I think, is interesting to have in our minds as we look at these tests, because it's everything that's working inside someone's environment together. So it's not necessarily a specific device. It's not necessarily a specific environment. It's a collection of devices and environments over a period of time that is that ecosystem. And so you want to try to find ecosystems to put your product in. There are inside two categories. One, the most common one you expect to see, that we can make sure it's actually going to work there. And then ones that are probably outliers, to make sure that it's going to work, or you understand what the failures are going to be in the outlier ecosystems. Second thing we want to do is focus on experiences. And so in order to do that, you want to take your testers through the feature experiences, not just through the features themselves. If I were to hand you, let's say, a mouse and say, okay, it's going to require 0.5 pounds to push down the button on the mouse versus 0.7. That's the feature. The features is 0.5 instead of 0.7. Probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you. I don't even know if that's relevant for a mouse. I have no idea what specs of mice are. But I know for me, it wouldn't make any difference, 0.5 versus 0.7. If I told you to push the mouse button down 100 times and then try a different one, now you have an experience. I can do it 100 times. I can see whether I like the experience or I hate the experience. If I try it on a different one, I'll go through that experience and know whether I like it or hate it too. That's what we want to do with our testers when it comes to this space inside testing. They don't need to have a test plan to walk everything through. You want to ask them to go through an experience. And so you consider kind of a product tour. Tour them through the product and let them do certain things inside of it. In order to do that, you want to give simple activities that give broad guidance, not a checklist of things to happen, but also on the flip side, don't just hand them the product and say, use the product. Because if you do either one of those, you're going to miss out on information. Well, you miss out on information either way. You either miss out on specifics of features that you need to have tested or experience tested. If you give them the whole product and you say run with it. On the flip side, if you give them a checklist, they're going to be so focused on the checklist, the same way everyone inside the company and the QA lab is, they're going to miss out on the actual experience, and we'll be able to give you the feedback on that. And so what you want to do once you have the experiences from your features is collect the sentiment and look for key drivers. And what I'll show here in just a second is a feature satisfaction survey, which allows you to do that. You don't need to collect a bunch of feedback and have your inbox fill up and then try to sort through it and figure out, okay, is that good feedback or is that bad feedback? Is this a good sentiment or a bad sentiment? You don't need to pay for a tool to do sentiment analysis on there. You can simply ask them their sentiment before you collect their information. So, for instance, I could ask for, after a feature set was tested by my testers, please rate the satisfaction of setting up the account. Now, we've done some heavy lifting here, just to throw the information out. We used to manually response code every single response that came back. And we did that for thousands, tens of thousands of responses across tests with our services team for about a year and a half. And what we discovered is that if someone is rating it an experience 3 stars or lower on a beta product, 90% of the time, actually higher than 90% of the time, they ran into an actual issue or bug. And that falls on the side of the quality where we want to have freedom from defects. They ran into a defect most likely if they're the target market and the product is not just broken in general. If they're rating a feature less than 3 stars, they ran into an issue. And so what you can do here is by taking their sentiment, you know that if it's less than or 3 stars or less on a 5-point scale, look for that bug. Ask them what the bug was. Maybe there's something else that's along with that bug. But you know there's probably a bug there. We found that 4 stars is that it's okay. You can go to Amazon, or at least you could do this about a year ago, and you could download all the star ratings across the different product lines that they have there. You can see what the averages are. And the averages in general are between 3.9 and 4.3. And you can choose a specific field if you'd like to see exactly where your product will land inside there to see what the average is. And so what that tells us is that a 4-star just means it's average. It's okay. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad. It solved my problem. It didn't get to that point of delight that we really like to look for. Now, that means most likely there's a freedom of defects. So the one side of the quality is working well for us. What you're missing out on is the other side of quality, which you want them to be delighted. So you get the NPS, the people talking to other people about it, the virality of your product being out there. So here, what you want to do is try to figure out what's missing. And you get information back from your testers because they may have used a competitor's product. They may have done something different themselves and made it better overall, or maybe they just have an idea. And these things can be very valuable for the roadmap. And lastly, if they give it a 5, something did take it a little bit farther. We've actually ran tests for companies who are interested in only collecting the 5s because what they were doing is looking for how to market their product better. And so there's 2 things you want to watch out for with the 5s, or not watch out for, 2 ways to use the 5s. 1, market, because you know that people like this already. There's a good chance the market that's similar to the people you tested with are going to like it as well. On the flip side, you don't want to break that feature. So working on a product one time where there was the best feature on the product coming back from the beta testers was the SD card on the first revision. The SD card reader was what they really liked about this product. It was unique inside of its field. It was really good. What we knew from that was not to touch the SD card reader functionality. So the next revision of the product came out, they made some changes to it. And what do you know? The satisfaction went down. So we reverted before it went live to bring those features back or make it the way it was before, brought the satisfaction back up again. So if you have something that's working, be very careful with it. Don't break it. And this will allow you to know what's working and what's not. With that information that's coming back from there, you end up with 3 different types of feedback. That's your issues, things that obviously need to be fixed. That's those 3 stars or less. You have ideas, areas that can be improved. And then you have the praise, the areas that should be promoted and should talk about. Lastly, we're going to talk about the impact signals. Just real fast right here. It's a simple equation. What's the severity? How bad is it? What's the weight? Where is it located out on the product? Is it a first-class feature or a second-class feature? How is it weighed when it comes to the product design overall? What's popularity? How frequently is it happening? So if you understand how severe the issue is, you understand where it lands on the product, and then you understand the popularity, how frequently it's happening, they'll give you an idea of relative importance. And you should do this with all of your issues. that you can, because what you're looking for is to understand which ones are the most important compared to the other ones, because not all feedback is created equal. You end up with this quite frequently as a Pareto, where you have a handful of issues that are your number one issues. Those are the ones that if you solve are going to make the biggest difference. One time we had a test for a new product, and we did 3 different things with it. We did a little roadshow across the company to different branches. This was before I was working at Centercode. Went to different branches of the company and showed it to people and asked them to give us feedback on it. We had an expo at the company itself, at the headquarters, where a lot of people came and gave us feedback on the features, and we ran usability studies with it. So taking those 3 data points, we also layered in our bug data from the QA lab, and we could figure out what the top 7 to 10 issues were. And so before the product launch, we actually knew what the first rev was going to fix, because those top 7 issues that came from those different areas were highlighted, and we were able to push that up and take care of that. And really ended up bringing up the star rating by about half a point when those things were fixed. The product release had a certain star rating. The fix went out a couple months later. It had a half a point higher star rating because of that. That's what this is looking for here. Understand the severity, the weight, and popularity, and it's going to let you focus on the issues that actually need to be fixed. And so delta testing specifically improves your cost of quality. If you're running a beta test right now and you're just throwing out things to your testers, a little bit of this delta recipe will help you a lot. So on templates, you'll get testers profiled quickly. You can rapidly start executing projects that are experience focused, get the experiences done, and get repeatable results. So you can compare yourself over time and between products. Modern tools allow you to centralize your testers instead of one spot. Instead of multiple different, you have like forums and surveys and email and spreadsheet all happening, just centralizes it. Automation takes care of a lot of the heavy lifting to discover key drivers. And then there's built-in impact signals, like I was talking before, on good tools. We have KPIs. They're able to allow you to quickly identify top testers to bring back on future tests, or to be able to talk to them about their experiences. You can compare experiences across products with KPIs. It's your key indicators. And then you can snapshot your project health and see how it is at a point in time, know whether or not you need to improve it by adding more testers, maybe replacing some testers, so on and so forth. So these are the ways that delta testing specifically can help as you're running these pre-release tests to improve your cost of quality. At Centercode, the way we can help is, one, we can get you started with beta for free. We have a free edition of our beta platform. If you go to signup.centercode.com, it'll give you everything you need to run a beta test right there. If you'd like to start running a delta test and take advantage of more of the automation and stuff, it has the ability to easily do that too. Second, we have a lot of resources. Been doing this for a couple of decades, and so we have gone through multiple phases. If you look at our resources over time, you'll see even shifts in that as we've learned things. And the most recent resources are the best, but a lot of the old resources still are very valuable too, because a lot of principles don't change over time. Then lastly, if you're just not sure where to start, or you want to talk to an expert, hit us up at centercode.com/demo, or just request a demo. What you're going to get from that is talking to a product manager. So we don't have salespeople right now at the front ends. We have our product managers there. We want to hear what your problems are. We want to know how we can solve it. And if we can solve it with our solution, we'll show you how to do it. If we can't, we're probably going to point you in the right direction. And so please talk to us if this is something that would be valuable for you. And that wraps it up on my side. So Austin, if you're still there, back to you, sir.
I definitely am. Thanks, John. Appreciate all those insights. I don't currently see any questions yet, but if you've got any of those, please send them across while I wrap up some things here, and we'll get to those. Right now, what's on the screen, I want to highlight a couple of new resources we have available. John was talking a little bit about the importance of templates and testing and keeping the cost of quality down. We're starting to build our free template library, or we're continuing to build our free template library, I should say, a little more formally. So you can find these feedback form templates on our resources page. We've got beta testing feedback form templates and user acceptance testing feedback form templates. So I encourage you to check those out when you have a moment. We'll link them as well in the deck that we're going to be sending out here after the webinar. And then let's take a look at any questions we've got. I don't see any. John, you may be off the hook. If you do have any questions, though, please feel free to send them to john@centercode.com. Just letting you know, John, you're going to get some emails there.
Okay. I just clicked on the wrong. Apparently you have these things linked, Austin, because I
do.
just clicked the link.
I do. Well, John, thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate everybody here for joining us. Still don't see any questions, so I think we're going to wrap it up here. If you're interested, please feel free to visit centercode.com. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next webinar. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot for your time. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.